The Daily Telegraph and Newsweek called it the future Soviet tank, and U.S. Army General Donn Starry described it as an unprecedented weapon, the likes of which hadn't been seen since the appearance of nuclear weapons. They were talking about the T95 tank, an ambitious, top-secret armored vehicle to outmatch every other. The project, codenamed Object 195, was planned to be as revolutionary as the German Panthers and Tigers of World War II. Still, the tank's development eventually started to fall under the weight of its own ambition, with modern technology catching up to it and a series of delays preventing the unveiling of a prototype. The Soviet Union would need to take harsher measures if they ever wanted the sheer power of their promised colossus to see the light of day. The war in Chechnya. In the mid-1980s, the ground forces of the crumbling Soviet Union wanted to develop a super tank that would revolutionize the history of armored warfare. Soviet military engineers basically wanted to build a beast that would outclass every other major tank that NATO and the United States had at their disposal. Such armored vehicles included the American M1 Abrams, the French AMX series, the Bundeswehr Leopards, and the British Challengers. The Soviet intellectuals were convinced that the project was feasible and would be as groundbreaking as when the Wehrmacht Tigers and Panthers were used for the first time in the battlefields of the Eastern Front during World War II. Even more, Soviet armor such as the T-72 and T-80 were aging, and although they were still usable and efficient, they were, in technical terms, rapidly becoming relics of another time. The motherland could still keep updating its standard tanks, but the desire to come up with something innovative, influential, and groundbreaking took hold of the Soviet army. The Russian Minister of Defense then contacted manufacturers Omsk-Transmash and Uralgovuntsevod, which had built the T-72s, T-80s, and T-90s, to develop a revolutionary design. Omsk-Transmash eventually came up with Object 640, which then became the Black Eagle tank. It was based on the stretched T-80U chassis, and only a few prototypes were produced. During the first Russian-Chechen War, the T-80 tank underwhelmed while in urban combat against the enemy forces, and the Black Eagle project was cancelled shortly after. Uralgovuntsevod then began working on a secret project, simply named Object 195. The Soviet top brass hoped this new super tank would make a difference in the Second Chechen War of 2000. The expectations were through the roof, and word quickly got out about the secret Soviet projects. News sources such as the Daily Telegraph and Newsweek printed the words of General Donn Starry, who said, quote, "The Soviets have achieved a technical development at the tactical level of war, which has strategic implications. We haven't seen anything like that in Europe since the advent of tactical nuclear weapons." The future Soviet tank. The media articles described the new tank as bad news for NATO and referenced the T-95 as the FST, or future Soviet tank. Although the foundation was laid in 1988 under the project name Improving 88, the development of Object 195 actually began in 1995. This new tank would incorporate a 152mm 2A83 smoothbore gun with an approximate muzzle velocity of 2,000 meters per second. Object 195's gun was also designed to engage in combat with networking capabilities to leverage the gun's range and attack targets spotted by drones and other friendly units. Also, its turret would be taller to allow greater elevation range and gun depression. The ammunition used would be unified, with the same artillery rounds used by the 152mm howitzers. This flexibility would allow the tank to fire all sorts of artillery rounds, including nuclear shells and guided missiles. Besides the thermal and optical sights with increased zoom levels, the T-95 would feature a highly advanced radar gun sight that would be used when visibility was limited due to multispectral smoke or other ambience limitations. The tank's second armament comprised a 2A42 30mm cannon that would be coaxially mounted. In addition, it was remote-controlled and included an autoloader, which allowed the crew to stay deeper inside the tank and increase their survivability. The three-man crew would be housed in a separate compartment in the hull that would be resistant against direct hits and even dangerous chemicals in case of biological attack. The T95 was also going to feature the relic explosive reaction armor, composite armor, and APS, or active protection system. Although details were never declassified, it appeared as though the T95 would weigh about 55 tons, and its diesel engine would render 1,500 horsepower, outmatching the 1,000 horsepower delivered by the T90. Uncertainty. In July of 2008, Sputnik News detailed that Sergei Mayev, head of the Federal Service for Defense Contracts, told the press that, quote, "The T-90 MBT will be the backbone of the armored units until 2025. T-72s and T-80s will not be modernized and will be eventually replaced by new generation tanks, which will start entering service after 2010. Mayev detailed that the next generation MBT, or main battle tank, was still under development and lacked a proper designation or code name. However, he explained that it would feature improved firepower, armor, electronics, and maneuverability than the T-90. Although the T-95 project remained secret, leaked details indicated that the tank would be equipped with a 152mm smoothbore cannon capable of firing guided missiles at more than 6,500 meters. The expected speed of this super tank was 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. In comparison, the current T-90 MBT configuration has a 125mm 24A 46M cannon that can fire anti-tank guided missiles at distances of up to 4,000 meters and can reach speeds of 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Work on the T-95 project kept dragging. Few outside the Department of Defense knew what was really happening with the super tank, and the fate of Object 195 remained uncertain. During the Russian Defense Expo of early 2010, Nizhny Tagil, the director of the Federal Service for Military Technical Cooperation of the Russian Federation, announced that Object 195 would be unveiled to several VIPs during a private session. However, just months later, in May of 2010, Deputy Defense Minister and Chief of Armaments Vladimir Popovkin told the media that numerous military projects would be cancelled, including Object 195. Popovkin explained that the Army had settled for modernizing the T-90 tanks, instead of finishing the almighty, robust T-95 that had been in development for almost 2 decades. The decision didn't come as a total surprise, as its technology was already obsolete for 21st century warfare. In addition, military budget cuts affected many programs, even more so if they were uncertain. To this day, no mock-ups or more details of the T-95 tank have been revealed, even as Oleg Sienko, chief executive officer of the Uralgovontsavod, said in a December 2010 interview, quote, "I personally want the tank to be shown, but for now, we cannot do this without having received all the necessary permissions. All I can say is that no one has developed anything similar. As far as the fate of this fighting vehicle and other new fighting vehicles is concerned, I hope that clarity will be brought in for the new military state program." Still, not all the investment and effort put into the T-95 were in vain, as many of its features were recycled and improved in the T-14 Armada. Displayed for the first time during the 2015 Moscow Victory Parade, the Armada made such an impression on Western nations that in a 2016 report, the British military intelligence described it as, quote, "the most revolutionary tank in over half a century of armored warfare history." Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe to our Dark Documentaries channels to find more exciting historical content. And let us know in the comments below what you think of this unique 4th-generation tank that Russian forces were crafting before the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Stay tuned for more.